I work pretty closely with the Northwest Wisconsin Grazers Network too on increasing best management practices for people that pasture cattle, or pasture anything, but mostly cattle. Those are and just partnerships with like the Farm Bureau and working with the Polk County Fair this summer too, because it's been since June since we've been in front of the committee, so just wanted to give a brief kind of update. Yeah, and then I listed a few things too that might be coming down the line that would be interesting opportunities. One of the things that I've been working with a colleague on has been there's some FEMA money that has been kind of coming available throughout the state through townships. And we've been basically looking at that as if there's an opportunity to partner with townships in Polk County, which is actually the county we're hoping to start with. We haven't decided township or anything like that, but in order to receive the funding, there needs to be a natural hazard plan in place. And so we're wondering, well, if we can get it on the front end of that, work with the township to develop a natural hazard plan, could that potentially unlock some funding to, also get to farms that are practicing things that will mitigate flood hazards and things like that, like cover crop plantings and whatnot. And so that's kind of an interesting or unique thing that we're looking at and partnering with that could be a really good thing, but we're still kind of gathering a lot of information on it. But wanted to share that too as a potential opportunity. So I'll pass to Ryan.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
So, I got to go first last time, so we decided Michael gets to go first for this meeting. But again, we have it on the handout. There's some of the calls, questions that we deal with. Michael and I were getting to where we have a process where we don't see each other every day, and so but we still communicate a lot. Some of the questions on like hay pricing, whatnot, cross both our areas. So some of that ends up falling under both. But from the only thing I'd add, we are in harvest season. When farmers are going, they don't necessarily need me to come in there and slow them down and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes to talk? When I know they don't have 10 minutes to talk that day. So this is when we do a lot of planning. And so a lot of those things we're thinking about doing in winter, come January, February, when we might be back. And that's kind of the months we talked about reporting again. Those programs, I can't guarantee they're all going to be in progress, but that's what we're starting the wheels on planning now. That tends to be a little bit more of our in-person workshop type season, let farmers get done in the field. So we have some of those activities listed there. Michael mentioned needs assessments. So we do both formal and informal. What's the difference? Informal is those things we take notes, we hear things, we say things to us. Talking Vince and Bob, we'll make notes there as well. One of the things we'll also do, is more formal. So I did a randomized survey, didn't go to every dairy farm in the county, but we're randomly selecting certain farms receive it. I wanted to make sure an equal number of farms in all 4 counties we cover received it. I didn't want one county to dominate over the other. So that's out there. They're still coming in, and that's something we're kind of this fall to another way of soliciting feedback for programming people on the from extension on the ag side. So that we're here. Questions.
And I will add to our contact information is on there. I mostly just wanted to kind of make that reconnection. And if there are things you're hearing from constituents or anything like that that you think would be valuable for us to learn about or whatnot, definitely reach out to us and connect us with whoever you think would be valuable to connect with in Polk County. We're always happy to do that and happy to have open conversations and things too.
So when we come to the pricing and stuff, you're going to help us this year? Crop damage, do you do any kind of stuff like that, or do you don't?
Haven't historically for quite a few years.
Okay.
I mean, let us know if that's something you need to be. I've done that. Don't real public, however, they don't know. If you're not in farming, they don't know how to find the current corn price, things like that. So
Sure.
that's a quick call we can definitely do.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else? Any questions?
I think the biggest challenge we have on that is prices fluctuate. Fertilizer prices fluctuated. So
Just about daily. So it's
yeah. Now, if you're asking me what's the best day to sell your corn, probably not the best route to go. So
Wednesday.
yeah. So that's not too far.
I do got a question.
Sure.
One of the things that, and not trying to stomp on anything, but we talked about cover crops, and how good they are for. My question with the cover crop part is how much more of a chemical load do we get in the ground? Because we're killing everything with chemicals. And I know you don't have an answer for that right now, but is that anything anybody's looking at? Because, you know, I look at all aspects of farming. I look at the organic side, you know, organic has its place, but when you look at the natural resources that are, I mean, you kill the crap out of that ground and you kill it until you can't kill it anymore. You know, the cover crop thing, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but just like where we're studying a couple undeveloped lakes where there's no runoff, you know, to actually see what a natural phosphorus load is going to be or nitrates in that water. Is anybody looking at that? Because that, you know, that's all we hear is cover crop, cover crop, cover crop. But you don't hear about the chemical load, chemical load, chemical load. I guess that's a question to ask Eric. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, you know, with the Horse Creek watershed or anything. Because I think, you know, we use more chemicals and just kind of wondering if anybody's actually studying that.
Happy to add to that, but I want to allow these guys to go first.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's kind of worth considering. Typically the chemical is used to terminate overwintering cover crops, we like to say, go round up. And there's been research done that like it does break down very well, very quickly. Whether or not, you know, a lot of people assent to that or not can be up for debate too. But for me, it's kind of one of these things where you need to look at the trade-offs a little bit. So, and certainly there's ways to look at too, other ways to incorporate cover crops without the additional chemical passes, or, you know, just because you're incorporating a cover crop, I mean, for some farmers, that doesn't even mean that they're increasing the amount of chemicals they're using. It's just a different time of year. And so that's kind of a piece to consider too. The other piece I would just posit would be there's kind of this trade-off that you play a little bit with, you know, we're maybe applying a chemical herbicide to terminate overwintering cover crops specifically. But those cover crops also provided, you know, the benefits of soil cover, building soil structure and whatnot, which is good. And that often gets talked about, but it also provided that nutrient capture. And so you're not losing as many nitrates, especially leaching through the soil or phosphates that are kind of moving across that soil surface because you have that cover there. And so it's kind of one of these straight, you know, sort of protecting that from getting into the water system. But sometimes that requires a chemical application to terminate that cover crop, which isn't always the case. And it's still kind of
There's
one of those
pretty
things
few
where-
cases, unless you're cutting it off for forage, you're going to have to kill it.
Yeah, well, there,
kill it.
you can, yeah, there's the option too of planting, you know, especially with if you're planting after a shorter season crop like corn silage or a small grain or something like that. You could plant a cover crop that would go during the winter and would still provide some value. It wouldn't get the spring value. And there's some things to do with roller crimping and whatnot, but we haven't seen that this far north yet. That's kind of why I say
What?
roller crimping it's called. So there's an implement called a roller crimper that a lot of people kind of in the south and really more so kind of started in Indiana area, from what I understand. You basically go across that rye when it's reaching antithesis, and so it's pretty tall. And we're pretty far north here, which is why I kind of hesitate. You know, you don't know. Well, most likely they're not going to get that. But that's a method that's kind of been established that, you know, it can pretty effectively kill that rye cover crop with chemical application. But up here, it doesn't work. Does that mean that there won't be something that we can find that's maybe similar to that someday? I don't know. And maybe I'll let Eric build on that a little bit.
Certainly, terminating it mechanically is possible, but we don't have a lot of that happening here because of our short growing. Many of the growers that we deal with cover crops, they're not seeing much for added applications of herbicide. So it's a lot of times the termination application is in place of pre-emergent, something like that. And then, you know, depending on whether or not they're tilling or they're no tilling into that cover crop, that cover crop residue has a tendency to suppress weed growth for much of the season in most cases. So by and large, we're not seeing added herbicide applications with covers above and beyond what normally they would apply. Now, that doesn't hold true with all operations. And it's kind of an adaptive management too. You kind of need to go through the growing season and figure out what the crop needs and make adjustments. So there could be added applications if the weed pressure is such later in the season, but most of the guys that we have cover cropping aren't seeing added application. Maybe two. I'm not aware of 3 applications within the season. They're trying to be 5 as possible.
So is that because we're using more residuals? Because like Roundup is contact. So is it because there's more residual chemicals used that you mix with Roundup when you spray the first time?
Yeah, it's possible. And, we don't typically take a deep dive into the chemical programs of a lot of the producers, but we ask that simple question: are you seeing more chemical applications, more passes in the field as a result of this? And a large answer is no. So maybe they are.
Because that's one of the things, like I said, I would like to kind of see, is there, if you're getting soil, finish telling the story, reduction in chemical usage, or we're actually using more nasty stuff than Roundup.
It would be fair to say timing is a little part of it too. I mean, the ones that wait too long or the weather holds you up.
And I would
That's where we run
even,
into more of that.
I would even add too, there's, in some cases, farmers have been able to cut out a second pass if they had enough of that residue to suppress weeds. And so the argument could also be made that cover crops could even reduce the amount of chemical being used.
Well, then if you could know, I guess that.
Yeah, and that's, it's just a hard thing to get
I'm
data
looking,
on.
if you're looking
because,
for a
like,
project to do, it might not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
I got 2 pages of projects here, so they're gonna be busy.
We have some room on the bottom there, we can add it.
You can add it, yeah.
It's something to look into. It's just hard to get into the nuts and bolts of each producer's chemical management plan, but it would be something I think worthwhile. to look into more.
Okay. All right, any other? Good, okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, here,
That's me next up.
it's you.
Okay, I'm gonna slide over to this side so I'm not in the way because the bulk of this. I'm bringing attention not to me, but to the presentations that we have. So glad to be back to share a summary of 2 successful well water test projects this summer. If you remember, we did the Apple River flowage watershed and the Upper Trade River watershed. And again, these projects were, well, half of it was grant funded by a grant we received from the Department of Ag through the SEG Innovation grant offering. And then again, thanks to you all, we had $10,000 of support from the budget. And we're continuing to have support from UW Stevens Point and Kevin Mazarik and his team and their groundwater specialists there. So again, this is a continuation throughout the county to update our well water tests and offer conservation practices that improve groundwater quality, like cover crops. This year, covering 2 watersheds, our mailing was pretty broad. We sent out a little over 1,100 letters soliciting for volunteers to test their wells. In the Apple River flowage, we sent out 620 letters. And in the Upper Trade, there were fewer folks up there. We hit the mark of 533. Our goal was 200 samples, and we didn't quite achieve that. We were short mostly in the Upper Trade. We achieved 156 samples. We were still fairly pleased with that number. Moving on, we also initiated and incentivized the installation of 477 acres of cover crops within those 2 watersheds, mostly in the Apple River flowage. So here's the two project areas. We have the upper trade here, rough watershed boundary and the approximate boundary of the Apple River flowage. In the upper trade river, we're dealing with about 30,000 acres of watershed. And that, if you can see it, I should brighten up those well sample points, but we have well sample points in pink. It's a pin map, and that is to show you kind of the distribution of our sampling. And we were pleased. Samples were kind of concentrated down here a little bit. We'd like more up in here, but we were okay with that distribution. It gave us a fairly decent representation. Hit one more click, please. Here we have the Apple River flowage watershed, and our sample distribution is a little bit better there, I think. And we did have a concentration of samples in that actual Apple River flowage area. Of course, that's where most of the population is in that watershed. This watershed is 26,000 acres. Again, we did the homeowner package, which includes pH, conductivity, all of these sample parameters, nitrate, chloride, and bacteria, again, are the important ones that we're looking for. That's a good indicator of groundwater quality, health. Kind of interesting. I like putting some of these bits of information there. The reason for testing, 71% were curious. The last test is always kind of a fascinating one. This is kind of a gauge for us as to how much outreach and education should we be doing, and how much are people gaining from this. 12% never tested, and about, let's see, I guess that's almost 50% were unknown or 10 plus years since they tested. So it had been a long time. As far as problems go, 18% had color problems, 15% had taste issues with their water, and 12% indicated there was an odor to their water. And luckily 43% didn't observe any problems there. Depth of well and casing diameter on there as well. Next slide. So here's the nitrate results map. And to sum it up, I'm pretty pleased. This data shows that our groundwater quality is fairly good within these watersheds based on the numbers. So remember that any value over 10 parts per million is above the public health threshold, and we should be a little bit cautious with who consumes that water and how we use it. And anything over 2 parts per million is an indicator of some outside influence on groundwater. So by the numbers, 71 samples out of the 156 or 46% had no nitrate detected, or less than say one part per million. 39 or 25% had from non-detect to 2 parts per million, and 18% had 2 to 5, 10% had 5 to 10, so a little elevated, and only 3 samples in these 2 watersheds, tallying up to 2%, were between 10 and 20. That's pretty good. So we're pleased with that. This is kind of the distribution of those samples. The 3 or the 2% of 10 parts per million or higher is less than I had anticipated. So we're happy with that. Next slide, please. Coliform bacteria, out of the 156 samples, we did have 33 that were positive for bacteria. This isn't the bacteria that makes us sick, but it does indicate there might be a pathway within their well water system that these critters are getting into. So it's a bit concerning, and we recommend that they take another test. Out of those 33 samples, and I should back up, anytime there's a positive coliform bacteria hit, we tested for E. coli. So those 33 samples had further testing, and one of them came back as positive for E. coli, and that resident was informed immediately, and I imagine they're taking the proper course of action to correct that issue. Next slide, please. Chloride results. This is another indicator of land use and things applied to the land. Levels less than 10 parts per million are good. Anything over 250 parts per million may result in a salty case. So it's not so much public health issue. It's aesthetics or taste. So pretty much everybody was 50 parts per million or less. We did have 4% that were 50 to 100, and one at between 1 and 200, and one at 201 plus. And I'm not exactly sure what the final value of that was, but fairly good results there too. Next slide, please. So currently, all of the participants have received their results and their package of information, water quality and interpretive guide or results guide. Next week, October 12th, and all of you are invited if you'd like to attend this webinar link hosted by myself and Kevin Mazarek from UW-Stevens Point. Send me an email and I'll pass you on the Zoom link. But that's coming next week, and that kind of ties this project all together. And we've had some interest from the participants to take part in this. It's just further interpretation of the results and questions and answers, and a little more about the system of how groundwater works. All well tests again will be included in the UW-Stevens Point well water data viewer. You all have access to that at that particular location website. And of course, myself and Kevin are always available for further questions. Next slide, please. So next steps, this is a major deliverable of our land and water resource management plan. So we hope to continue this effort because we have a 5-year review coming up, probably the end of next year. Hope to go early rather than later in that 5-year review. So with this progress, we have good things to report. We also applied for another SEG Innovation Grant for 2023, and the watersheds planned for 2023 are the Straight River Watershed and Horse Creek Cedar Lake Watershed. So any questions on that? Otherwise, we can move to the next
Can we
topic.
get copies of that presentation?
Of course.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. One thing too, I can also include the summary report, which I didn't bring as a handout, but I can include the summary report in that as well.
So another thing is, any new construction, would you pull any of the well reports for that in those areas?
We don't have access to those well reports, and
Isn't that a DNR thing that we do online? I mean, they have to go get it just like they get a hunting license or anything now to do it. I thought that was all online.
it could be we're kind of out of that loop. All of the data that we pulled here were volunteers for this program specifically. So they worked with us to get these tests done, and this is
Because they don't test for as much, but I mean, there's some new houses in those areas too. That would be nice to get the well depths and some of that stuff.
those well reports for the new construction is all online. If you have an address or a map location, you can access that information, but it doesn't give you anywhere on there, to my knowledge, of the test that was done on that well.
Well, they usually have to do it for nitrates and chloroform. That just, but people should know that if you take that test, if you put your finger on the inside of that lip or that cap, that can throw it off. So 33 people might have did it wrong too.
That's right, and that's why we recommend another test.
Yeah, because it's pretty touchy, the testing, but okay.
I thought it was kind of interesting when you look at the percentages of people that had problems with their water. When you compared that to the percentages that had never tested or 10 years plus tested. You got a problem is, it don't taste right, but man.
And that's the thing, there's a disconnect.
Get a water softener. Test it,
Yeah.
get a water softener.
A lot of people don't know how to
Suspicious, eh?
test, so that's one of the benefits of this program, I feel, is that we're giving them instruction on how to do it. Connecting them with who to do it, who to get the test kit from, so they'll be more apt to.
And people are uninformed. I know I give the updates on this at the town of Eureka meeting that I attend. And one lady asked, she said, well, we're all afraid to get tests because if our test is bad, the county's gonna fine us. I said, what is the county gonna fine you for? And I said, no, I said, I know I help approve all the list of fines and I've never seen a fine for it, that you have bad water. I mean, they believe that. She believed that. So she wasn't gonna get her water tested because I might get a fine.
Are you suggesting another fine?
No, I'm not.
Well,
Not at all.
by these results, we wouldn't be making too much on
No,
this, I
no,
think.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to jack the price up.
Yeah. But it's funny how people are uninformed about that.
Just a little side note, I attended a meeting on Sunday and many of them were St. Croix County landowners, producers, big producers, residents. And we had a conversation about well water quality in St. Croix County. Very concerning. Many of those people have reverse osmosis systems and their groundwater is not fit to drink. So we're fairly lucky so far, and I would say we should try and keep it that way. Very expensive systems and a lot of concern around groundwater quality in St. Croix County.
So what's the major issue?
It's
They had bigger landfills and stuff from the cities that came in, huge ones, in a few different spots. Right
Yeah.
around Hudson.
without a doubt, it's a number of variables, but
Yeah.
regardless, yeah, it's concerning.
The joint Zoom thing that you're doing with UW Stevens Point, is that something where the committee could interact with you?
Oh, absolutely.
We have to notice it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but
It was Shavana noticed it.
sure. Yeah.
I just saw Great River Watershed.
Yeah.
Seems to be a small area. Great Lake.
Yeah, I don't recall the number of acres in that watershed, but it might be larger than you think.
Yeah, just the way you lay it out.
Yep, in that HUC 12 category, it's anywhere from the 10 to 40,000 acres, I suppose. So 10,000 to 40,000 acres.
That's good.
Yeah. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you.
I've also got a zebra mussel update on Balsam Lake. So this is an update and kind of a timeline. Because our staff have been working on this quite a lot this summer. Been an emerging issue and once again, we continue to document the transport and colonization of new invasive species. So zebra mussels in Balsam Lake is the latest. Slide, please, Bob. So on June 17th, 2022, a resident was in the lake and found what he had thought was a zebra mussel. And the resident called Tyler Masalk at the DNR. He's the main point of contact there. Could not get a hold of Tyler, but brought the specimen to a Clean Boats, Clean Waters individual at one of the landings. They were on their way back to Minnesota for the week, and the Lake District was notified by this individual and got the specimen to us, but it was kind of a mystery as to where this thing came from and who found it, where it actually came from, and so forth. But next slide. Throughout the weeks following, we did figure that out. And all of these pictures are actual zebra mussels from Balsam Lake, and this is the actual first specimen from Balsam. Specimen was severely damaged because when you take them off whatever it was attached to, if you do not do it right, they can be damaged easily. But the shell was still intact, good enough to positively identify it as an adult zebra mussel. Our land and water staff, along with DNR, spoke with the resident and confirmed the encounter and confirmed that it came from Balsam Lake and gathered information from the find. It was found attached to a native clam. It was found in Boston Bay. You know where that is, and if you don't, I've got a map later in the presentation. And confirmed that he had given the specimen to the Clean Boats, Clean Waters inspector. On June 22nd, Land and Water notified the district president of the finding, and we ran through some steps moving forward. Land and Water staff and Tyler went to the location where the specimen was found and searched quite a bit, checking rocks and sticks for more zebra mussels. And at that time, found nothing. Land and Water installed a plate sampler, which I've got a picture of that. That's a protocol for zebra mussel sampling. Installed that device where the specimen was found. And also started collecting veliger toes. It's a process that you take this net out to specific locations, you drop that net to close to the bottom, and then pull it up vertically. And there's a cup in the bottom that will catch water and whatever that net collected, and you can put it in a sample bottle and send it off for analysis. So DNR, back up please. DNR and Land and Water collected veliger toes. DNR collected some on June 27th, and we collected some on July 7th. And the veliger toes were a composite sample, so they were put together. On August 23rd, the veliger result came back, and our LWRD sampling yielded one veliger sample. That's it right there. They're microscopic. And on September 20th, the veliger results came back from the DNR, and another veliger was found in that sample. So veliger toes came back positive. Next slide, please. So this is that plate sampler that I was telling you about. More on that in a minute. But September 27th, the LWRD staff removed the plate sampler that they originally installed at that initial site, and we found more zebra mussels. We brought it back to the lab, and we counted 22 on that particular sample. So they are reproducing. They are there, and you know, those initial searches found nothing, but in that month or two's time, we've seen adults, veligers turning into adults and attaching. On September 28th, LWRD found an adult zebra mussel on the north end of Bear Island as well. And just yesterday, our staff were out there and found zebra mussels along Carlson Island, Big Island, and Boston Bay sandbar. So next slide. These are those locations and actual pictures. So here's Boston Bay. The sandbar here, zebra mussels attached to the rock. The north end of Big Island, zebra mussel. Bear Island here, more zebra mussels. And Carlson Island there, a couple of adults there. So what are we doing for these AIS efforts? Right now, it's training for citizens on ID and monitoring. doing some more clean boats, clean waters training. As you might imagine, now that we've got zebra mussels in Balsam, we're gonna need to be more conscientious about decontaminating our equipment before and after recreating on Balsam Lake. Template boat landing signage, assisted with planning for decontamination stations and provided AIS information to all dock service providers in Polk County. And we've handed out many zebra mussel dock check brochures. So people that are removing their docks in the fall, there's a checklist. Next step or next slide, these are from DNR. So from DNR's perspective, future management, there's various products out there to try and control initial zebra mussel colonies. Product called Zequinox or other copper-based products, but the take home here is all of those applications have non-target effects, which means they'll kill native mussels and clams. They may have effects on fish, just not real good for life in the water, and they're generally cost prohibitive. So they cost a lot of money and their results are somewhat uncertain. There's some manual methods out there too, but again, I think given the distribution of what we're finding for zebra mussels and the rate at which they're expanding, our manual methods may not be even worthwhile. So on October 15th, I'll be sharing this presentation, and Tyler from DNR will also address the Balsam Lake District October 15th. So got their special Lake District meeting. Last slide. So DNR will continue to monitor the lake for presence of zebra mussels and try and figure out the rate of spread throughout the lake. Of course, this lake is connected, very well connected to other lakes downstream, so the rate of spread is important. Depending on the number of specimens found, aging of individuals would be done to assess age structure within the lake. So our staff, myself and our staff did some aging on those samples, and they're all within a year old. So zebra mussels can live 4 to 8 years, and they get up to 2 inches long. All the ones that we found are months old, probably, but less than a year. And DNR's planning on providing notification to local partners and lake groups of this new.
So once they get into a lake, there's really nothing you can do then. pretty
Right.
much.
Yep.
Except for
Prevention is the
trying
best
to-
medicine.
Except for trying to keep them from going to the next lake.
Right. Yep. Yep. A little bit about, we've talked with fish biologists and there could be impacts on the fishery later on, depending on how widespread zebra mussel population is. Walleyes generally don't like clear water, and zebra mussels have a tendency to clear things up. It could facilitate more aquatic plant growth, having clear water, allowing more sunshine. So there's impacts here that we not yet seen. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and again, this is particularly concerning to me because this lake is pretty well connected, and we know which bodies of water are down the line. Constant flow of water there, so we'll see what happens. But thanks for your time and attention to this. We're unfortunate, but I'm happy to share it with you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah. We need a short break. You good yet?
Sure.
Okay. Just your last. This is gonna be fun. Yeah. Go ahead, Malia.
Well, I think
Get us
Amanda's
started.
here.
And Amanda, both of you.
I can give an update. The court, Judge Anderson has our cases for this year. They're still on hold until this committee kind of gives more direction, but that's the status of the foreclosure cases for this year.
Okay.
So we're starting the process for this upcoming year. Currently, we have, the list is about 142 parcels. This is significantly lower than last year, which at this time was about 220. Majority of them are people who are in a cycle where they tend to pay at the last minute or in the last month or two. One of the reasons it's so much lower is that there was some programs available to taxpayers this year through the state of Wisconsin using COVID money. The county or state treasurer's office and another office worked with the County Treasurers Association to get information out. And so we sent the paperwork for these programs to everybody on our list that had payment plans, and that everybody that we felt that would be helped by any of these programs that had back taxes, et cetera. And so, and the money came directly to the county, so that really did help. A lot of people did get, a lot of people, you know, using that term loosely in a county of 40,000, did get help from their taxes. It ranged somewhere between like 1,500 and some people got up to like 6,000, 7,000. So from the ARPA funds. So that was some good programs that are out. I think they're kind of closing out some of those programs now, but they did really help a lot of people in the state of Wisconsin. So it was very effective. So that's kind of where we are at now. We're kind of going slower just to see because of the Act 216 stuff that's out there still.
The temporary help was just temporary, so it's another year and then it
Right.
starts over. Yeah.
Right, but then if you can catch up with 1 year, what's happened is that helps the people so that they're not always 3 years behind. Now they may be only 2 years behind. And so, yeah, so it's definitely helpful, so. And a lot of these people are people that are, you know, living on the margins, who are, you know, one illness away from losing a lot of stuff, or a car breakdown, so. It's good that these programs are out there, and I thought it was a good use of the ARPA fund by the state.
Now 216 is just kind of hanging there yet, isn't it? For decision wise,
How we're gonna
how
interpret
we're
it?
gonna interpret it.
Sure. So there is a consensus from the court councils that, you know, at the time of the sale, the liens have already been discharged. And so reading that consistent with the language of the statute, which I don't know what their intent was, but by the time the sale happens, there are no liens to pay off. So we wouldn't be in a position that we're going to be paying, you know, looking for those mortgage holders and all of that. Having said that, whether the courts will agree, I mean, it really needs a legislative fix, and that's the next thing on the agenda. Amanda, did you have a chance to look at?
Yeah.
And so I know that Brad Olson isn't here, but he had asked that we draft a resolution, a lobbying resolution. And I did that, and I sent it to Brad. He had some comments. I don't know if we want to have this on the next meeting when Brad is here. I do think he's in favor of this. I think Amanda and I are on the same page that this.
This is the one from Marquette County or something that I had. I like that
I
one.
made it a little better.
Okay.
Especially if you take the liens off the thing, what this allows a person to do is have a bunch of liens on your property, go ahead and not pay taxes, when you sell the property, they get the money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd almost rather have the liens there, although it's a huge administrative burden, but
Again,
at least the people get paid that have
No liens,
money
yeah.
owed
Or they can go
by,
back and buy it back. No
right,
liens.
well, they still get the money anyway.
They get the money
Yeah.
anyway. so.
Basically, we're discharging all their debts and paying the money.
it becomes an incentive to not pay your taxes. It
Yes.
becomes a disincentive for counties to engage in the foreclosure process. What then results? Blighted properties,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
dilapidated places. Now, I think there has to be a legislative fix because this is so ambiguous, or it's going to end up in the courts because of cases, and then we'll have to deal with whatever they decide. So the lobbying resolution, I think, is really a way to go. And the more counties we can get to buy into the same or similar. You guys have copies of this?
Of the resolution, I don't think so.
So B has them. I asked her
Oh, okay.
to bring them in. But again, we're basically, I mean, we're saying, these are the issues with it, fix it. This is one that I think could be sent to WCA.
And, the WCT. County Treasurers Association meets next week. I'm not gonna be there, but this is the main item that they're gonna be talking about. And I would be surprised if a resolution isn't drafted by the group as a whole to address some of these also. And I know, I think Andy Phillips himself is gonna be at the meeting at some point, either through Zoom or in person.
So we can move this forward, but we, this under this. if we want.
Yeah, you could move
Because
it
it is
forward
on
to
the
county
agenda.
board.
Just not sorry to cut in, but I was just gonna say, we might read this and say maybe we should keep it going. Especially with that meeting coming up, that this would get circulated to them too.
Yeah, when is your
We
meeting?
keep it.
It's next week. I think I can send it to the group.
Yeah, even though it hasn't, it
Right.
won't have passed the county board yet, but just keeping it moving, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I know Brad had some comments to the draft as far as changing language, but I think that's something he could certainly bring up at the county board since he's not here.
Sure.
We can take it to the November one, that is your budget meeting, so you maybe want to go ahead and do it then. Or I don't know if you want to wait till December.
The sooner the better. I mean, the more.
Yeah, I
we
mean,
tell
yeah.
them, the better, I think.
I didn't know since
That's a
Brad
huge
wasn't
problem.
here what the committee would want to do, but it would be my recommendation that you move it on. And deal with it in October and not during the budget.
Yeah.
Can it go to the county board in October? Yeah. I lost track of when the meetings are. Yeah, so the, only today, yeah.
So it would make it to the.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This would make.
He thought it was
Lion.
or last night, sorry.
Yeah, so if we skip one, I think it's.
Yeah, so,
It's lost, that's what I'm thinking. that we
Yeah.
do it Fast paced. So ask your question or make the motion to do it.
Yeah, well, I have to ask her. So is this more beneficial to the taxpayer themselves and less work on the county end, or, I mean, what is the gain here, I
the
guess?
fee is nothing by the county.
Okay.
And what it does basically is it takes all the work from a taxpayer or a realtor and puts it on the county. And basically, we don't get to keep anything other than our actual expenses for doing it.
So by doing this, it would reverse that?
It's saying that we think this is a bad idea.
Right, so this resolution is telling the legislature either repeal what you did or fix it.
Add
Okay.
260.
Okay.
That last sentence.
Because otherwise she's gonna have to hire somebody to do the 142 a year.
Well, they'll have to be a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there may be more, because like I said, if you're looking at selling,
Yeah.
and you don't want to deal with it, and you have a bunch of liens, and you're not going to get anything from the sale of the property. Without paying your taxes, liens go away and you get the profit.
So that 3 years cycle would just be a mess.
Or the county then doesn't take,
Yeah.
or
Or
take the
doesn't
property
take
and they live there tax free in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's no good ultimate outcome, long-term cumulatively if this law stays as
This
is.
is 5
happened.
years too. At
Yeah.
16, it's 5 years.
That did happen with mortgage companies back when bubble popped, is that mortgage companies would go through the foreclosure process, not finalize it because the house was worth less than was owed on it. People just lived there.
Oh, for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, for a long
Yeah.
time.
Some of them didn't know they didn't not own the property.
Yeah.
It was less common around here, but there was some properties. But it was very common in like the big, like Milwaukee in that area where they just didn't take them. And so then you have all these properties kind of in limbo. So,
So that's,
Yeah, I say move it forward.
we'll make the motion
I make a motion, move forward.
to the full board.
With the recommendation.
What about with Brad? on the-
He could do an amendment. The language he wanted to add, I think he's misunderstanding something, so I'm gonna have a conversation with him, but if he feels strongly he can,
You can amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the county board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a second to move it forward? Second from Doug. All right, does everybody think that's good? So all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. So that will go to the October one. Yes, yeah, the sooner the better. Okay,
does the committee still want us to ask the court to wait?
I think we're gonna have to. Otherwise,
At some point, we might
we'll
need
make a
to
bigger mess.
dismiss.
I was gonna say, what will happen is that if we don't do something, they'll dismiss the cases and then we'll just have to do them again with the next group.
And I think if by the next meeting, we're still kind of in the same spot, I suggest that we just go ahead and ask the court to do that. The reason why we'll save face, because the judge has a dashboard that says your cases are so old and nobody's doing anything, why haven't you? So if we dismiss and then just knowing that we would have to refile on those few properties that are
And the
still.
142 does include I think there's about 18, it's about 7 or 8 different taxpayers that have the last years are in the process, so.
Okay. Because otherwise, we're gonna have to sit and go down to each one, because they need a house or something, we bet not one.
Well, no, this was 216 says it doesn't matter if it's a home or not, it's even vacant land.
Oh,
Right.
really? Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's,
All right.
all right, thank you.
Thanks.
As we're right down to the, need all this surplus money we got.
Thanks.
Updated budget proposals.
Right.
Prior to the meeting, Don handed out some income statements. We'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. And this is really a brief update of our 2023 budget. I do want to talk about and review some of the objectives and projects implemented this year in 2022. And then transition into our budget request from the Environmental Services Division. Not a robust. And then some of our strategies going into 2023, how to ensure fiscal responsibility and a balanced budget. And then I'll transition into the income statements, and I think Don has information as well. But it's relatively brief and get through this. So yeah, these are some of the projects that were supported last year through additional funding requests. And I just wanted to go through each one and give you a real quick status update. We have this cross-training initiative. This is something we've been doing for several years now. And we're trying to empower and provide professional development, particularly for administrative assistants, to be able to do multiple functions within the division. Carol is an example. Jacob, who was here earlier, is an example. Sarah, Tracy, for example, have been helping out the property lister. So that's a continuing initiative that we think is important, particularly for current constraints that we work in terms of the groundwater study. Well, you saw a product of that from Eric's presentation today, and that's a recurring project. I'll talk a little bit more about that. You all remember the LiDAR. Thank you for all the support there. That was funded by ARPA funds. We had the flight last spring, and right now, it was a federal project, if you recall that. That's for USDS behind it, so it's taken a little bit more time. A consultant, which is AIRS, slowly gathering data. Our goal is to migrate it and do the training for staff this winter, probably spring. And so it's a little slower than past LiDAR flights because of the federal dollars.
That'll come online, what, until next spring?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Yeah, you know, it's in the scope of work, but there isn't a timeline, Kim.
Oh, there isn't a timeline now.
No. It's been slower than we thought. You know,
They reduce the price then when they
Optimistically,
slow it
maybe.
down?
I'm sorry,
They reduce the price and they
yeah,
don't deliver on time?
that was, you know, roughly 40% subsidized for the Fed. You know, I'm just saying gas. Gas, an optimistic guess, I'm thinking maybe next spring. This searchable component. Of course, I did that Culver inventory as well. We had a couple of the Lorraine parking lot project, I remember that. That was resurfacing the parking lots in Lorraine, for the Ice Age Trail. That was the past Foresters project, North Austin, for east of 30th Street there. If y'all remember that, so that was implemented. Register of Deeds scanning project. This summer, a vendor took all those vital records and in the North Conference Room, spent, I think they worked 24/7, scanning all those historical records into electronic. So most of your vital records, your marriage licenses, EDT 14s, are now searchable online. So that's completed. And then the comprehensive trail network plan, you know, we continue to move forward. We're staying on task in the planning and implementation of the 13 projects identified in the trail network plan. We've been giving you regular updates. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get them all done this year. Some are still in the planning stages. Confident that those funds will be rolled over. You remember they were the proceeds from the lime quarry sales. But yeah, those are.
We have that list. Don't we?
Yeah.
We can start checking off some of them.
I have the list. That's a sort of a narrative.
That's an update.
Yeah.
That's all.
We have a Gantt chart, which is a project management tool that we've been updating and keeping
Maybe the
on
next meeting. we want to go with
several pages. Want to see it?
They're big.
Quite a document.
Maybe just the highlights of the 13, how far we are.
I could do that. I could build up Tim's old list and give you just a status.
Just the status of each one.
Sure.
Some are going to be pretty close. Especially after Monday, that's a big one too, at St. Croix Polk. Yeah, that's a big one.
Right.
But if we, I mean, if we can get it out there, then people will see it more that these are getting done. So
Yeah,
it's
that's, you know,
not in
the
the
challenge.
background.
Yeah, we're so focused on planning implementation, the dissemination of its status has been a challenge, you know.
To get it out that this is being done,
Yeah,
unless it's controversial and it's a parking lot didn't want.
and that's the thing, you know, like with
Everybody
Brad, earlier we talked about Summers Lake, the question groups not knowing that. Well, Brad's been out there. You know, mapping the trails.
You gotta get it out there.
It's on the rec viewer.
Yeah.
You know, we're not marketers. Try to be,
And over design kiosks. Trying to plan for safety features, new signage, fire signs, so. That additional piece is something we do.
Just show that. We don't just have a big list in there, it's a,
Yeah.
you know, that's, things are actually getting done. We can Appeal a lot.
I'll start with an update with you all.
Sure.
And then, hopefully work with some partners.
Okay, yeah,
Next slide, please.
there's got a lot of surplus money to do. That's what I'm getting.
Well, yeah, there's a story about it. The LT for land and water, that's also a product of, ARPA, remember resolution 1022. That's to help, subsidize 3-year LT. Because, land and water secured nearly $700,000. Nearly $400,000 of which would need to be allocated to cost share projects, conservation and water. So that is something that is supported by our, not levy dollars. The bike and pedestrian plan, that's a carryover. We're hoping to do that this year because of our workflow. We postponed it to the summer of 2023. We have, so that carryover is 13,400. We're paying that over from the previous year or this year. To do a
Is that
bike
the West Central one?
Yeah, they are the project manager. And then, yeah, we'll need some staff to. We're looking at doing that in summer of 2023. The undeveloped lake study, you all recall that, that's the initiative that you all supported. It was your idea to collect baseline data on 7 undeveloped lakes over 2 years. So that's a project and that was part of our additional funding. We're going to continue the groundwater study next year. We have, as Eric mentioned, Horse Creek, Cedar Lake, and the Straight River water. To the next watershed. And then another nominal request, we just need additional RTI. Lastly, if we think this is important, it's pretty a nominal increase. We're just going from 8,000 to 9,000. We wanted to sign all of our public properties, in particular cemetery, about planning trail. That's going to be just a safety feature with all these new trails, new trails for emergency response. Important that there's signage out there.
But how about cemeteries? I thought the county can't own cemeteries. So we better not sign him and say it's the county, put Lincoln, he's gone. Oh, we gotta make sure Luke owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in case. I didn't think we could lose. We'll be careful at the cemetery.
Yeah.
That's the extent of our additional funding request.
What's the total?
I'm sorry.
What's the total amount?
Yeah.
Approximately.
Got that right here.
Oh, now the money guys. Oh, yeah.
Isn't that pretty cool?
I can't type very fast. My fault.
Registered
I can't
deeds
type
has
very
got-
well either.
Registered deeds has got a bunch of money.
Oh,
Extension's a little up.
okey dokey.
If I could, I'll comment on this too. The amount that Bob and his team have requested, and the administrator has recommended as well, is right at $52,000. So a relatively slender request, given the big picture. I'll also say that Bob and his group have been very good about prioritizing.
So, and you'll notice that he's got sort of strikeouts through the two bottom bullets. They've decided to wait, but we've helped them decide to wait on a couple of projects. One's an online permitting system, and I think Bob could comment on that if you'd like. And it's not that we don't want the beach folks to get new furniture across the organization. We're asking everybody just to take a little pause on furniture until we can settle into our building, our new building over there, or revamped building over there. And then we're going to ask Mo and his group to identify just a couple of vendors with some lines. So it'll become a little less discretionary in terms of which chair or which table. We'll have a little bit more control over that at the county level. We won't ask Mo to get involved and make a decision about whether we need a chair or not, or Bob needs a chair or not, but we just want to tighten things up a little bit there. So we're asking everyone to take a pause on furniture unless we've got new people coming in, they just don't have it. So that's why there's a strikeout there. But in total, the online permitting software and the furniture request was about 50 grand. So one way to look at it is Bob and his team came in with about 100 grand worth of requests, working with us, talking about priorities. We were able to crunch that down to about.
Cut it in half.
I like to think of cutting it in half.
But that does make sense with furniture, to have something that's consistent across. Instead of one group saying, I want these chairs that are $500, the other group's getting chairs that are $200, and then that, you know, it's.
All that's left for me is to go to Menards and buy a plastic. chair.
Yeah, really.
We did have an unusually high number of requests for furniture because we're remodeling, we're moving.
Yeah.
And we thought, let's take a pause. Because we're spending so much on the building already. Let's take a pause and let's prioritize. Let's have some methodology to determine who in fact needs the furniture the most.
Yeah.
Instead of, everybody coming in and saying, hey, I got this tomorrow. Someone,
Yeah.
I got an old beat up
We did
desk.
have a chair ordeal at one time.
Oh,
Sure
Mhm.
did.
The
Really?
ones- Yeah.
Oh,
did
did we?
that
have-
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we had it.
Oh,
that person doesn't.
Yeah, really.
Oh.
That was an ordeal.
Yeah.
Amen.
So and that's for all of these. Yeah, that is for registered deeds, land and water.
Everybody.
But it's only 50,000. Oh,
And the next side,
that's awful good, yeah.
well, on the next slide, we also have some strategies, again, to be fiscally mindful. And land and water, so they always have the capacity to take on more projects. Granted, their workload is full. But they'll continue to be proactive and searching for grant funding projects. Board Lake was recently brought up to meet their revenue goals. Keeping in mind and trying to be conservative, looking at the economy, interest rates. We reduced the zoning revenue to roughly about 10%, both from sanitary and use permits, and that's roughly 19.5. We anticipate bringing in close to $20,000 less in zoning revenue. And so that's part of the 2022 budget. Another cost savings initiative, which is a pretty common one, is to postpone filling positions on the road, save on those labor costs. So we're looking at replacing or withholding filling of the county planner until the end of the second quarter.
Would you start to fill that ahead of time to fill it then, or that's when you start to advertise in July?
We'll probably start, redesigning, rewriting the position description, May or April, posting it.
And then start putting it out, so around July, you could get one or start to get one.
That's the goal.
Somewhere in there, okay.
Yeah. I think we'll come in on a lower grade too. So I think that could be a potential savings of anywhere from 40 to 48, or 60 to 69 with fringes.
Well, we put West Central, they're the planning outfit. They help us get more, we pay them already.
Right. We work every Friday.
Your tax.
They are also short staffed. So we did reach out to them.
Central Regional Planning. Oh,
We do that.
well, they've been having a hard, just like everybody else, having a hard time filling. They've got two, and then they hired somebody, and that person never showed up. Because, it's just been constant for them. just like a lot of other organizations.
Overall, just be real quick, land information, revenue exceeding expenditures, as you can notice in your income statement. Right now, end of third quarter, we're about 31,000 short of hitting million budget revenue goals, but we still got another quarter. We're pretty confident we'll hit those revenue goals. Land and water, in your income statement, they're in the red. But grants normally come in later in the year, plus the big grant, our staffing grant, subsidizing, 70% of the highest wage earner in the county. That's 149,000. That usually comes in November. So that shortfall you see in the income statement for land and water is clearly,
It'd be a surplus.
it'll be, well,
Correction, it covers 100% of the first position, 70% of the second position.
Okay.
and then
But he's not the
ideally,
highest paid.
50% of the third.
He's not
and
the
it's like-
highest paid.
I'm sorry.
You said he was the highest paid in the county. In his unit.
I try and pad
Otherwise, we
that.
have to give the administrator another raise.
I can only go so high when I write that grant.
He went the highest paid in the county and I kind of went, whoa. Vince even missed it because then he went.
Take more out of Eric here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
Ideally, it should take the 50% third. So
Yeah. So,
it runs out.
yeah.
Forestry, again, revenues exceeding expenditure. We had really a 3-month savings with labor. This is the gap between March and Brent. So that explains that. ROD, they're roughly about 40,000 short of your end budget goals in the third quarter. Again, the revenue exceeds expenditures, and that's not their fees, it's the filing's over, it's their fees, and we anticipate them hitting the year-end budget. All of our revenue goal.
Extension stayed about the same. But I thought this is just our part of extension. Was this the total one?
This is the first I've seen it. I'm guessing this is the entire department.
Just these two is
No, that was
the
good.
ag part?
That would include, extension would include the position that I used to hold.
Okay.
It would include 4-H.
Oh, that would include all of them.
Entire department.
Okay, so this is the entire department. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So these numbers include, that takes into consideration the 1.5% increase type thing and all of that.
The COLA and the merit that
Yeah.
we've been discussing, yes, they do.
Yeah, a lot of that. Okay.
So the only other thing is, yeah, if we want more desks or something, we have to amend the budget at the November meeting.
We want more what?
More desks or chairs, we'd have to amend the meeting,
And the budget.
amend the budget at the meeting.
Let's don't do it in November, please.
See? Gotta remind them that could happen.
Good, I know.
That could, yeah, extend meeting length.
Excited they wanted the chair. Yeah.
Well, as Don mentioned, there's a process to the.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, for anything, I mean, if anything else comes up, and we're pretty well covered with our, our work orders and stuff, our.
Oh, no. Sorry, my computer just died.
Yes. Do we need number 12, Malia?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
I mean,
let's see, yeah,
I'll just do it from memory.
if you ever have one. of those things. You still on that? Not yet.
I mean, there's really not anywhere where I'm sitting.
But you are representative?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And we have a meeting. Yeah, North Sac. And, meeting coming up at the end of the month.
Oh, yeah, okay. But if you want to do it, let us know. Put you out there.
And we only meet quarterly, so
Yeah.
last night, we talked about that.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Did you-
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, do you guys make the motion?
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
My auditor. Hold auditor.
Yeah.
Motion,
I made it.
is there a second?
Have a great day, people.
Double second. Okay. We down to. Vince got off without saying a word all day.
I know.
He's pretty lucky.
Good people.
What do we,
Okay.
anything on the next?
Well, I wanted to just bring something up. We put in your packets, a list of ordinance amendments since early amendment season is upcoming. On that list, it's grown, by the way. We've added one, the adult entertainment ordinance. And, this was talked about yesterday in county forest land.
Oh, you gotta bring St. Croix. I'll bring St. Croix.
Or maybe an emerging entrepreneur. Anyway, the second one is something that was talked about.
That viewing corridor now, is that for the St. Croix River viewing corridor or anywhere?
Anywhere. And it's
Oh,
really
really?
just housekeeping with our current shoreline ordinance. Actually, Kim, that's a good question. I know, well, back to the last bullet item, this was brought up at Public Safety, Public Works yesterday. We met with our annual meeting with the DNR, Knowles, Governor Knowles, all the foresters. ATV, UTV season, remember how wonky it is? It's hard to convey it to. They're not sure when they can go on forest land and when not. Anyway, it seemed to be through consensus, even talking to our partners in Governor Knowles and the foresters in terms of impact in Sterling there, that we extend the ATV, UTV season on designated trails in county forest lands year round. We'll bring that towards you. We have some pros and cons. But back to the list. I think we're gonna tackle the manure storage ordinance, and stormwater control, first and second, and then the borrow provisions, 2 in the comprehensive plan. Those are the first three we'll tackle.
Start putting them in an order.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
I think
that.
let's
I'm gonna put that on a
prioritize.
work plan. That's a good idea.
Let's get them in the order of, because the tourist grooming hounds could be coming up, but I think we should get some of it in order, because the ATV, if we're gonna extend the season, we should do it sooner than later.
Well, there's some questions this year. Most of these start after the season.
Oh, okay. So that way.
We can update our signage as well.
Sure.
It's really confusing when we get calls. Open, open, you know, when they close during the spring, we were concerned about. random impact
Yeah.
on engineering. So, but, you know, Sterling is Sterling, standing alone and. Not a lot of concerns. But we'll bring that forward to you. So, Kim, good suggestion. That reminds me, on the work plan, we still had the agritourism lined up for November, but we haven't heard from them. I might strike that, have these in order. And then, will be a busy winter.
Yeah. Well, the ag tourism kind of dropped under because of they went to the healthcare people and you have to go through the trailers and stuff. That's pretty much.
Can get around.
Those are
public
saying they
health
couldn't get around the public health part.
Out of the fees.
Yeah, that they wanted 0 fees and they couldn't get around public health. So. Like you said, I think we could strike those for now unless they come back.
Or have we not ever heard anything back on that Apple River solar thing? What's going on with that? You see the little snippets
yeah.
come through, like
Once you
my
guys signed up,
office and things like that. Do you know what's going through like their queue or whatever it is? But it's like, where's it going? Is it going anywhere?
they've extended the timeline. The earliest is in 2024. or
That's what I
2025.
thought I read.
So then they had to open it up to public comments.
Yeah.
So if you're registered on the PSC document, you are.
Yeah,
So you get those notices, yeah, so again.
like
because of
any
the
permit they
extension-
file for any, all the public comments that go through,
Mhm.
see all that stuff. It's like, where's it going?
Kind of like stalled.
It's been
Yeah.
postponed.
But Wisconsin changed it on the megawatt size too. If it's over 100, they have different regulations.
Yeah, they had it when I
They
was
just
at the
changed all that.
county conference. One of the workshops I went to still had it listed on their map.
On their
as-
map, yeah.
Yeah, on their map, they still showed it as being
100.
in Polk County.
Yeah, so it's right there. Yeah.
I know that there's one citizen or resident in the township that keeps asking, so when is this project entering my backyard? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have my notes, but I thought it was gonna start at the earliest, when it first,
I thought 24 too now is when they
at
said.
the earliest, no, when it was first proposed, it was gonna be
22, 23.
2023.
Yeah.
They were gonna start this winter.
Yeah,
Now I think it's 2 years. Could be wrong. but it
no, I
has
think
been-
you're right on that, because I think that's what I read. in
Yeah,
there.
did that update, because when I asked for the update the last time and they came back, you came back with that. And I think that's
When's
what
the
they-
payment in
lieu going to the municipalities in the county?
Oh,
Upon completion
Yeah,
of the project.
yeah.
so-
And that's gonna be a we should put this on as a topic is what I'm saying, on maybe December or January.
Well, for
Yeah,
an
that's
up- just for an
just
update.
even for them, because I know that their people have changed, so like Kira was the person of
Oh, yes, they have
contact
a
coming
whole
here. I
new-
mean, this is all got another whole
Another
change of
country-
people again.
Another country.
But pretty soon they'll do another name change, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm communicating with 3 different folks.
Yeah.
And Sherry.
I don't know, there's one gal that was with Kara, but I don't remember what her name was.
They can change enough times, they might have to start over.
Well,
If they drag it out this far.
that's crazy, because like a revolving,
Not really. We got a marketing in, and we got a marketing person's answer. One told me the state gave them, and not just me, told the group that the state gave them permission to landfill them, if they couldn't recycle
Repurpose.
Yeah.
them.
You
Yeah,
can't repurpose.
There's a
it.
market for repurposing them, but they're not.
Okay. So that we'll put on for something.
Yep, so I'll work on the work plan, update that. In regards to the October 19th meeting, we'll keep number 6 low. Number 7, we just have one rezone in the town of Bowling Lake. We're gonna have Jacob present rather than Jason. Try
And
to
have Jacob do one?
Yeah, we'll have Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a rezone from RA5 to Ag 10. Eric mentioned earlier, and maybe we can move this up because of the workload in ordinance amendment season. For the work plan, they're supposed to do an update on the land and water resource management plan, that 10-year plan that you all worked on.
Bob,
Just
will
a-
we have a rezone for the Clayton County for that
I'd
driving
like to
school?
give his application to Thompson.
Yeah,
We're still waiting for his application. We got everything from the town. No application.
that's weird. There's like a lot of action going on, so.
That's gonna be my house.
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah, it's like down the road from my house, so.
We haven't got.
Step over, Jason, get a red card.
Is that forgiveness one or
Yeah,
the
that red card.
permission?
you put it on the telephone pole.
Stop now.
If you help out, maybe you want us to, or?
Well, I mean, because he was so gung ho, I mean, about, made sure he was on the agenda for the town, I got approved, and, I mean,
We have all
like, the
that.
next step is to come to you guys and to make sure everything is all, I mean, because the woods is cleared, I mean, he's excavating, he's in full swing of.
But is
So-
that where maybe he thinks that the county stuff was all needed and needed?
Well, I made certain he knew he had to go with the application to here. And they would give him further direction, so
10,000 square feet tore up.
it's massive.
Wow.
Because he's losing revenue by not having it open. So I know he's in a big hurry. Oh, yeah, maybe just.
We
reach
just
out
talked
there.
about that was coming.
Mhm. I know he's very
So,
adamant
I might
about
have
it.
2 public hearings. He cut it close to give us 2 weeks in.
Yeah, we'll reach out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise that's how they know 2 weeks ahead. We're pretty safe. All right. Treasure, we should be good then.
Oh, Anthony, I don't mind. What about, again, here doing the resource management plan? Again, that's the.
Yeah, let's do this.
evaluation.
Yeah, let's do that update.
Okay.
So that we have it. Yeah.
We'll add that. That was my question.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll add that to the 19th.
Number 10, the treasurer should be,
That's all
I don't know if
done.
we'll get any answers by the next one. We're gonna send that.
We should have a couple through 16.
Yeah, what, I think we'll need to decide what we're gonna do with the ones that are pending for this.
Oh, okay, so we'll put that back. Yeah, consideration, yeah, put 8 back. The rest is good.
Then 11A, yes.
Yeah, your update will still
Will we
come.
do any budget?
Any more budget?
Mm,
The 19th. That'll be after the board meeting, the 18th. So, I can't imagine there being a, we'll just go through proposed amendments that October meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Will be updated that night before.
yeah.
So pretty much, yeah, we.
Yeah, we-
Then that kind of what we want.
Yeah, and then we'll have another meeting 2 weeks later. If there's something that, we
Yeah.
gotta fix, we can fix that.
Sure.
We-
Because otherwise, yeah, we have the budget stuff pretty much settled in.
Should we add closed session again, Maria, or will we know?
Throw it on there, that way, if there is something, if there is some action.
Because we always take it, yeah, we always say we don't need it.
Right.
2 or 3 other items we might add, going back to the town of Sterling again tonight.
Okay.
Zoning, county zoning authority, I presented last time, gave them their official zoning map. Wanted to talk to a couple of commercial folks.
Oh, there,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're refining their official map, we're going back to it. That might, yeah, and I know they have a resolution.
Not doing that, do we wait till the first of the year to do that
Yeah.
officially then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Another thing, there might be another forest land purchase in McKinley. Remember the one year and a half ago, that
Yeah.
80 or 78 acres? Well, now there's another property owner, adjacent to county forest land, 240s to the east.
East, not to the west of the road, so we don't do the east, like we did the other way.
There is a road.
Oh, is there a county town road?
Yeah, no, there's a town road and then a logging road.
Then a lot of road. Yeah, okay. Because otherwise we want to go west. I think, get that main log.
Well, there's a landlocked road, and this sort of joins it back,
Oh, okay.
and north of that. Okay. That might come, Brent's an approach. And then, yeah, just an update from last meeting, and Jason and I, and we're gonna work with Maria too on our zoning compliance internal procedure.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that might be down the road.
That, yeah, that might be a whole section. There might be special non-paid leave that you can do.
Man.
I think we've got. Sharon, I think we've got.
Oh, I think we adjourn.
Is there a second? Tracy, all in
Sure.
favor, say aye.
Now I need to like change my mind.
So-